Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Visions of Atlantis, Pirates II-Armada, out July 5th on Napalm Records. The album has 12 tracks, 53 minutes in length, and this is the band's 9th full-length studio record. They are an international symphonic metal band. When it comes to the design of this record, I feel like this is a very mature album. It has a sense of purpose, beginning, middle, and end. It allows you to see exactly where the record is trying to take you. It has the right structure behind it and allows that structure to be one of the factors that makes the listener stay connected, and it makes the listener stay comfortable within the listening experience of the record itself. Now, this is an album that I feel like it's really about the overall experience, what the overall record is giving you, not just about what each and every single song brings to the table. Having said that, this record has two very important songs as far as the structure is concerned, and they are The Dead of the Sea and Where the Sky and Ocean Blend. Now, why are these two songs important? Well, first of all, they have unique characteristics to them that set them apart from all the rest, and those unique characteristics also brings them together and connects the two with one another. Both of them are over the 7-minute mark. Both of them signify the end of a chapter, the end of side A, the end of side B, and from a sound standpoint, they both have a lot of similar characteristics that allows them to be a little bit more complex, that allows them also to be a little bit more texture, pushing the boundaries of what Visions of Atlantis are all about. So as you can see, the structure of this album has a lot to offer and has a direct impact on how you're going to digest, on how you're going to appreciate everything that the album gives you. Now, as far as the sound is concerned, I have to say this is their best sounding album to date. And I think the reason for that is simple. You're able to see all of the different elements, and you're able to see them merging with one another, but there's not one single element on this record that overshadows the one next to it. This is an album that still has that big orchestration, that still has that symphonic impact, that creates a very cinematic overall feel for the entire record. Even in songs that are very stripped down, that have that ballad approach to them, you still find them to be larger than life. And a lot of that is coming from the orchestration side of their sound. But it's also coming in a lot of ways from how heavy the drums and guitars are. And I'm not saying that they're brutally heavy, because that's not the case, and it's not their DNA either. But on this album, I really found the guitars and drums to be quite heavy, to add a little bit more substance, to add a little bit more oomph. So when you have that heavier side of their sound connected with the orchestrational side of their sound, you're starting to create songs that are not just big, that don't have just size, they have volume and substance within that size, and that gives them more texture, that makes the songs richer. They give you more to offer, more to digest, more layers to peel. And when you look at all the elements that combine to make this experience, the guitars, in my opinion, jump above all others. And the reason for that is they're not only creating melody throughout this record, they're not only creating that heavier side of the sound matched up to the drums. The drums and guitars work really well in parallel with one another to create a little bit more of a heavier drive on some of the songs. But the guitars also offer pockets of clarity when it comes to the solos. The solos on this record are not solos that are over the top. They're not solos that perhaps would mesmerize the listener. But there are solos that are important in defining the key characteristics of each and every single song. They are important in defining that because they help you understand the emotional side, the origins, the root of each and every single song. All of the tracks on this album have a different idea behind it. All the tracks on this album have a different emotional baggage. They all use the same condiments in order to create this recipe, but the output of that recipe is different on a track-by-track basis. And I feel like the solos played a very important role in defining what that is, because it's that clarity, it's that pocket within the song where everything else becomes a little bit secondary, and the guitars having center stage are able to, in sound, tell you a much vivid story, paint a much vivid picture of what the track is all about. And I think that's where the impact of the solos on this record resides, in the ability to make it clear to the listener what this song is about and the feelings behind it. Now, the drums, like I said, work really well with the guitars as far as the heavier side is concerned. They're not overpowering at any given point, even at their heaviest point. because they reach a certain level where the orchestrations come in, and then it all starts to blend in a little bit more, and it's harder to define the parameters of one versus the parameters of the other. But an element that I felt was interesting on this record was the bass, because the bass on this album is very noticeable, and that's not always the case on symphonic metal records. The bass on this album adds a little bit of darkness at times, but it also adds a little bit of grooviness. The fact that you can hear it, the fact that you can detect it on certain key moments of songs, I think it speaks volumes to the overall production behind this record, finding ways of using all the pieces available in order to make as much of a rich sounding experience as possible. And then we get to the vocals. Clementine and Meek, their best vocal performance since working together is on this album. And I think it goes back to the different emotional side, the different drive, or the different origin story of each and every single track on this album. They did not give you a one-size-fits-all approach within their vocal range across all 12 songs. What they did was they used their voice to tell, the same way the guitars with the solos are telling you the emotional side of the song, are telling you the origin story of the song. I felt the same thing happen with Clementine and Meek with their vocal performance. In songs that represents anger, their voice trembles a little bit with that anger inside of it. In songs that are a little bit darker, a little bit more melancholic, a little more introspective, there's a different darkness coming through the vocal performance. There's a different coldness coming out of the vocal performance. So their vocal performance throughout this record is very unique. Within their range is very unique from song to song. And that's because they connected emotionally with the tracks. They are at a different level on this record. And that emotion sometimes allows things to be different, imperfect, a little bit colder, a little bit warmer. But all of these nuances is what gives great character, not just to their vocal performance, but to the tracks themselves, making this, in my opinion, their best album to date. No questions asked. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with The Land of the Free. Big, bombastic opening, great drum sound, really helping define that bigger sound, that more powerful sound, and then the guitars come in and they add heaviness to that overall experience. Vocally, very dynamic song, super dynamic, I would say, from both vocalists, creating this almost heaven and hell type experience, because sometimes you go from almost an angelic perspective to a really aggressive side, to a more angrier side, and this allows the song to have great movement. The choirs, the way that it builds towards it in that chorus works really well. This is a track that vocally has a lot of layers. It's very warm vocally, even at its coldest moments is still very warm. So it's a track that has great movement, both musically and vocally. It has a great solo that really helps complete the track and define what the track is really all about. Then we have Ashes to the Sea. Clementine is haunting on this song vocally. I felt like the orchestrations on this track create a very calm and warm backdrop, and that allows her voice to soar. It allows her voice to kind of guide the song for most part of it. Even when Me comes in and he's the one driving the song, the experience that you get out of him is not that much different than you get out of her. The emotion between the two are on par. They're very level. You're just getting a different sound, you're just getting a different texture because they're two different vocalists. But in terms of where they're coming from and the image that they're trying to display with their voice, that is very similar. It's a great ballad with great dynamic between two great vocalists. Last but not least, my favorite song on the album, absolute favorite, and I think this is the heavier song on the album, Hellfire. A very angry song, a song that's based on anger, and you can hear that in the sound and you can hear that in the vocal performance. It still has a very cinematic approach. It still has a lot of volume. It's still a big sounding track. You still get the drums and guitars infusing heaviness into the track. The orchestration helps that heaviness become size. It helps increase it exponentially. But there's also a storytelling aspect from a vocal standpoint. The vocals are not just angry. The vocals are not just intense. There's also the ability to still be able to tell a story at the same time that you transpire the emotion behind it. And that's what makes this song really cool, really different, really impactful, not just the fact that it is the heaviest song on this record. This is it, Visions of Atlantis, Pirates II-Armada, out July 5th on Napalm Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, hit me up in the comment section, and I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.